let's look ahead then, shall we? Because Saturday is the Preakness Stakes. It is the second leg of the American Triple Crown, which you can watch exclusively live on Sky Sports Racing, with coverage starting right here at 8:45 p.m. on Saturday. And who better to discuss the race than Peter Fornatale? Of course, the main question about the race does surround the controversy of the Kentucky Derby winner, Medina Spirit. We've got to start with looking at the form. Should we start by looking back at what happened at Churchill Downs, Peter, a fortnight ago, when this horse, who was bought so cheaply, it was a great story, wasn't it? We all fell in love with the game again 2 weeks ago. Baffert, it was a record-breaking win. He stands alone now, doesn't he, in terms of Kentucky Derby winners? This horse was it $1,000 he cost initially, and he was so brave in front here under John Velasquez, a rider approaching his 50th birthday. It was a great romantic story.
It really was a fantastic story, and it was even bigger than that, I think, Tony, just in terms of how this was like this major sporting event after this dark time in the USA, and it really was one of these moments just personally where it felt like we were turning a corner. And then we had the backdrop of the great story of the $1,000 horse in the barn full of $1 million horses, who was able to get the job done. He's an undeniably gutsy equine. He definitely has a lot of the qualities that make us like racing. He punches above his weight in terms of his pedigree, and he fought hard. It looked like he was a sitting duck there for Mandaloon and the rest in the stretch, and he just kept finding.
He did. Should we have a look at his previous run? This was the run before the Kentucky Derby. This was in the Anita Derby, Peter. Rock Your World, of course, beats him here. Rock Your World, things didn't happen for him in Kentucky. He got off to a bad start. He couldn't dominate, but he could this day. He was impressive. He's out in front for John Satherton and Berto Rispoli. We're looking at Medina Spirit, who would go on to win at Churchill Downs. Now, this day, Medina Spirit was favourite, but he could never really lay a glove on Rock Your World at Santa Anita.
I think we learned about Medina Spirit, in my opinion, in this race, that he just isn't quite the same horse when he's not able to make that lead. Here, Rock Your World made it rather easily, then worked hard to keep it, and Medina Spirit never was able to land a blow. The entire race of the Kentucky Derby changed when, as you referenced, Rock Your World was not able to get away from there. The rider's foot somehow not in the iron, one step out of the gate. He then took a bump, never got involved in the pace. Midnight Bourbon, another runner who was expected to show early speed, he took a bump early. Mike Smith elected to let him regather and feel what he had under him before attempting to go forward. He wasn't able to go forward, and Medina Spirit was allowed to control that pace in the Kentucky Derby. It did look like he was going to get run down, but just the way, if I was be looking at the race like it was a normal race on a Thursday, you'd say, okay, there were three possible horses, could have made the lead. One of them broke. That one won wire to wire because the other two didn't break. This would be the kind of horse that you would normally be looking to take on the next day.
Okay. Outside of Medina Spirit, look at three contenders back-to-back, Peter. We've got Concert Tour winning the South Vicente Stakes. Of course, he was beaten in the Arkansas Derby after this. Midnight Bourbon we'll see as well, and Crowded Trade. Concert Tour, let's start with him. He's drawn stall 10, hasn't he? Mike Smith is on board for Bob Baffert. I've heard in a few camps calling him almost like we call them over here flat track bullies. He was a horse who was winning easily in lesser company. He stepped up against the big boys in the Arkansas Derby and he got found out. Is that fair, or is that an unfair criticism of the horse?
I do like you bringing in the cricket terminology there for sure, and I do love that concept of the flat track bully. It's hard to know is the honest answer. This is a horse who's been very well fancied. While Baffert all along had spoken of Medina Spirit like he was an overachiever, Concert Tour was one who I believe was being touted in the inner circle as the horse they thought would probably win the Derby. And there are people to this day saying, oh, it's going to be Concert Tour by 8 lengths. Now, the numbers, that's all narrative, and I'm a numbers guy. You know, I respect horsemanship, obviously, too, and try to incorporate that into my form study where possible. But at the end of the day, when you look at the past performances of Concert Tour and Medina Spirit, it's, I think, on the actual data, it's very hard to make that case. And those flat track bully type runners, they're supposed to put up bigger numbers than what Concert Tour has done. The trick is, I mentioned before, I felt like Medina Spirit needs the lead to show his best. I think it's the exact same thing for Concert Tour. So it's always a little, put the Baffert controversy aside. It's very tricky to evaluate the race and come up with an opinion when the same trainer has two horses and they both need the lead. I had always expected that one would develop some excuse to be pointed to the Haskell and not go here. Both of them in the race for me means I'm not going to be able to back either one with confidence.
Yeah, I agree. Very, very quickly, we'll look at Midnight Bourbon as well if we can. And then Crowded Trade. This was the Champagne Midnight Bourbon, Peter. He was third. Crowded Trade was third in the Wood Memorial. I mean, are either of those on your radar?
They both very much are on the radar. Midnight Bourbon, he hasn't really run fast enough to make an impact in a race like the Preakness in theory, but he's done everything else right, and he's in great hands, and he has the good foundation as a 2-year-old that we're watching here. Plus, he had the excuses I mentioned of not breaking the last day, and then he had trouble after that. So this is a horse that I think will be part of the case and is certainly very interesting. And then here we see Crowded Trade for Chad Brown, whose past performances look a near carbon copy of Cloud Computing, who won this race for Chad Brown in this barn, I think it was back in 2016. Light race, progressive type, does have a big figure race to run back to potentially. Definitely an interesting one at double-digit odds for his tactical versatility.
Yeah, he's interesting, isn't he? But I think we both quite like the same one, don't we? Keep Me in Mind. I mean, I think we've both landed on him, bizarrely enough. He was such an eye-catcher, wasn't he, in the Derby? He's a horse I'd be looking for each way. What's he drawn in terms of the draw? He's in stall 2, isn't he? Davy Cohen on board.
I like Keep Me in Mind as well. He was simply overpriced in the early markup I saw yesterday, 33-1, just too big on this horse, who in a race, the Derby, that flowed to the front, was one of the few making progress from the back. That was better than the 6.5 length difference between he and Medina Spirit we saw there. I think Midnight Bourbon goes. If there's some other pace, one of the Bafferts will certainly go. Maybe, just maybe, it can set up for a late runner to get involved. Keep Me in Mind, to me, should be about 10-1, and he's 33-1 in a race, especially where I can't get locked into the ones at the top of the market. It's a great way to go, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Keep Me in Mind. We'll keep him in mind for Saturday night. Don't forget, it is live. Sky Sports Racing will have all the build-up, all the action, all the reaction, the second leg, the middle leg of the American Triple Crown.